Next person is Kenneth. It says Kenneth Tate.
Shalom.
Hey, shalom, brother. You got a
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
Hold on one
That's
second.
me.
Hold on one second. Caller, hold on. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
So I called last week, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of like rushed me off the phone while I was making a point about Paul.
You said I
Now
rushed you up.
I'm going.
You said I rushed you
Yeah,
off the phone.
yeah, because I call Paul a flip flopper, right? Because Paul in his letters he says one thing and then he'll say something else especially as far as the law.
And
So
because you
now
was
let me show you.
and because you were saying that, I rushed you off the phone. Is what you're saying?
You cut me off the phone, bro. Like twice already. You got me off the phone.
Cut you off or get you off the phone. I'm pretty sure I did. Rushed you off the phone. I do not think I did.
All right. So
Hold on one second. Caller, hold on. So because from what I remember on the
yeah.
phone, as you and I was talking, you actually agreed with Paul. And then
Right. Now, but yeah, let me stop you right there.
I'm gonna
Let me
give you the
stop you
floor.
right there, Cap.
I'll give you the floor in a second. The
Okay.
reason why you called him a flip flopper is because you agreed. Because I took you to a verse. I think we was reading Galatians, and then we went to Romans 6, and then you agreed, and so you called him a flip flopper. So we can pick up right from there. You call him a
All right.
You call him a flip flopper. What you want to talk about today?
All right, no. So that day when I called him a flip flopper, and I agreed with the grace part. This is what I was trying to say. That I agree with the grace part. What I don't agree with is, check this out. Romans 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Romans 2 and verse 12. No, verse 13. Right? You got
Right.
it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is Paul. So now when we turn over to chapter 3, verse 20. Chapter 3, verse 20. He says, therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. Now, he says, it's over here too. He says, you'll be justified. That no man will be justified, right? No, in 2 and 13, he says, for not the hearers of the law are just before God, justified, but the doers of the law shall be justified. Then over in 3 and 20, he says, no man shall be justified by the law. This is what I'm talking about. Now that is a clear contradiction. And let me give you one more, and then I'm gonna let you speak on it, all right?
No. Let's just. I don't mind the one more. Let's just deal with this
All right.
first, and then you can give me one more.
Go
So,
ahead.
I'm just gonna try to repeat before. I'm not responding to you. I'm just trying to let you know I understand. So you saying Paul flip flop from one chapter to the next chapter, right? From Romans 2 to Romans 3.
Himself at least. Go ahead.
He contradicts himself, right? All right. So now, in Romans 2, it says, for not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law are just before God. So,
Right.
what that means, so I'm going to break them both down for you perfectly. When it says, for not the hearers of the law, meaning you can hear, thou shalt not commit adultery. You can hear, thou shalt not murder. You can hear, thou shalt not steal. That doesn't mean anything if you steal. That's what that means. The doer of the law is one that keeps the law. Now, Romans 3, you're going to see something different in Romans 3. In Romans 3, and what verse 20? It says, therefore, by the deeds of the law shall no flesh be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. The difference between both verses and why it's not a flip-flop. The deeds of the law is when you find that person that committed adultery, you punish the adulterer. You punishing the adulterer does not make you justified by God, because by law is the knowledge of sin. The law that he's talking about there is the deed of judgment.
Yeah.
You're only carrying out that deed because someone did not hear, excuse me, because someone did not do the law. So actually those two verses go together. What Romans 3 and 20 is an example of a hearer. Romans, because he's not a doer. And because he's not a doer, he's getting punished by the deed of the law. The deed of the law requires the sinner to be. That's why you notice at the bottom it says, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. That's talking about the punishment of the law. Romans 2 is talking about keeping it and avoiding the punishment of the law. So it's not a flip-flop. You just have a misunderstanding.
Well, hold on. So it doesn't matter if it's about the punishment, right? The law is the law. We'll be judged by the law. You'll be punished or saved by the law.
Let me ask
You
you.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I don't have
a
a
question. Can
Huh?
I ask you a
Yeah.
question? You know you know any dirty cops?
I've heard of dirty cops. I
Okay,
don't
so
know
you've
any
heard. No
dirty
problem.
cops.
No, I should have phrased it like that. I apologize. So you've heard of dirty cops, right?
Absolutely.
And you also heard of dirty cops being decorated for their service of work?
Absolutely.
Right. So even though they are decorated, they get all the medals and awards, we know that they did robbing, drug dealers, keeping the money, they're taking money on the side. They are dirty cops. So with Romans 3 and 20, when it's saying, by deeds of the law shall no flesh be justified, is the same thing Christ did in John the 8th chapter. And Christ said, he who is without sin cast the first stone. And they had to all drop their stones because they were wicked as well. So they were dirty cops that thought that by carrying out the punishment or deed of the law, they would be justified. And Christ cut them just like Paul is cutting them.
Well, now let me address that. We had that
Hey, shout out to
conversation.
Sakina, man. Sorry your account got hacked. Go ahead, brother.
We had that conversation, and I suggested to you that Yeshua did not tell them not to stone that woman. All he said was, and if you read it in context,
I agree. He wasn't telling them not to stone him. He didn't tell them.
I
agree with you then, but he did convict them. That's what the text says.
Yeah, it's okay for him to convict them.
And that's what Paul, that's what Paul is doing in Romans 3 and 20.
No, bro, hold on. Let me show you another one, right? If you have the Apocrypha, I believe you have it, Baruch 2, Baruch, and it's in chapter 51, and it's the very first verse, because Paul is saying,
you said Baruch 2?
2 Baruch.
And my Baruch 2, it only goes up to 35, verse 35.
All right, so you got the short version. All right, so we move on from that.
But before you do that, in Romans 3, I want to read a couple of verses above 20, right? It says, let me see where I want to start. I'm going to start at verse 9, but I'm going to skip. I'm not going to read that many verses. So it says, what then? Are we better than they? No, in no wise. For we have before proved, both Jews and Gentiles, that they are all under sin. As it is written, there's none righteous, no, not one. There's one that understandeth, there's none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out.
He takes that out of context. But go ahead.
Sound like I think you taking it out of context. It says they are all gone out the way, they are altogether unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips. This is the exact same thing that Christ said in Matthew the 23rd chapter. He said they are like a whited sepulchre, who appear on the outside clean, but on the inside full of dead men's bones, full of extortion.
Wasn't he taking this from David, the Psalms?
No, I'm not saying where Paul is taking it from. I'm saying that Christ said something similar with the sepulchre. He said the exact same thing. Then it says, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. He's talking about the Pharisees. He's talking about the
Okay.
Sadducees and Pharisees, and he's saying their
All
mouth
right.
is full of
He's
cursing.
one of them.
He's saying that their mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood, destruction and misery, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it saith to them that are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world may become guilty before God. Therefore, by the deeds of the law shall no flesh be justified. Meaning, all this wickedness that they're doing, they're the dirty cop. They're the cop that is doing all the wickedness, but because they are locking people up or because they're carrying out the punishments, they think they're a good cop. And Paul is saying you're not justified. That you gotta understand the context of what he's talking about. That's the
I
context.
understand the context.
Then if you understand the context, then you got to speak from that context.
All right, check it out, Cat. I'm speaking from the point that Paul was negating the law all throughout his writings.
You got to show where he negated it.
Hold on. He's trying to get rid of the law. Okay, look in Romans 10. Look at Romans 10 and verse 4. And we can't, and you know.
Caller, hold on.
There's always a backstory to explain Paul. It's not supposed to be that hard.
It's actually a backstory for every scripture. You said Romans.
No,
you said
bro.
Romans 10 and 4, right?
10 and 4. What did he say?
It says, "For Christ is the end of the law, for righteousness to everyone that believeth."
Now let me stop you. Can I stop you?
Yes.
See, when we had this conversation before, I took you over to Galatians 3 and 23 and on down to 24, 25, where he gives the analogy of Christ being the faith and the law being the schoolmaster. And in that chapter and verse, he goes, we are no longer under the law. At the end of that verse there, 3 in Galatians 23 to 25, he says, we are no longer under the law because Yeshua comes on the scene. And right here, that's a precept to that. He says, well, Christ is the end of the law. When you tell me that okay, now hold on. When you say that he's the end of the law, you're telling me that's the law is over with. It's finished because he's, hold on. You're saying that, what does the word end mean?
End mean it's over.
That's right. Okay, so if you don't mean that, you can't now give me a caveat for that, brother. You gotta look at what, and especially when he's saying the rest, he's saying that throughout his letters. But in Galatians 3 and 24, this is what he says.
This is why, like, you're such an example of why Peter said those that are unstable and unlearned wrestle with Paul's writings.
See how you become insulting? Now you see how you're insulting me now, right now.
Wait.
Because you're telling me that I don't. You're telling me I'm not comprehending what I'm reading.
Yes,
that's what you're telling me.
No. What I'm telling you,
but you're wrong.
Just hear what I'm saying. Wrong. No problem. I can be wrong, but you got to hear what I'm saying.
Right.
Peter said. This is what Peter said.
I know what he said.
And I'm gonna come right back to your Romans 10 and 4. It says, account the long suffering of the Lord is salvation, even as our beloved brother Paul also, according to the wisdom given unto him, hath written unto you, as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of things in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable rest, as they do also other scriptures. So it's not just Peter saying they don't understand Paul's writings. Peter is saying that they don't understand no writing. So when Romans 10 and 4 says, for Christ is the end of the... Hey, somebody got to mute your phone in the background. So when Paul says, for Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth, Christ is the end of the law. And what the context of that is talking about is whatever punishment you're under, whatever punishment, whatever law you committed before Christ, you agree that there's laws that you could have committed that you would have to die for, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree that, wait a second. Let me not get this wrong, right? Yes, under the law, before Yeshua shows up, you can die for for breaking the law.
Right.
All right.
When Christ came,
but he doesn't take. Yeshua does not take that away. He
One
doesn't.
second.
Paul is saying that.
One second.
Yeah.
So when Christ comes, do you die for the sins that you should have died for? Or do you get born again because of Christ?
When Yeshua shows up, he dies for his people. He comes to his people.
He dies for what?
What did he die for, Tazaryach? What did he die for?
I'm asking you.
He died because he was speaking about keeping the Most High's laws. Bringing the children of Israel.
Is that what the Bible? Is that what the Bible says?
Speaking about bringing the Most High's laws.
Is that what the Bible says he died for? Is that what Christ said he died for?
Well, okay. Show us where Yeshua dies for his people.
This is Christ out of his
own mouth. Out of it. Listen. Out of his own mouth.
Don't give me. All you gotta do is just be quiet.
Don't give me Paul's
All
letters.
you gotta do
Don't
is
give
just.
me Paul.
All you gotta do is be quiet. Don't.
See, there you go, man. You need to calm down, bro.
I'm not. You don't see. You don't see me. You asked the question. I'm gonna read it. Go ahead. You got to stop talking. Thank you. Matthew 26 and 28. For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. So Christ out of his own mouth said he died for the remission of the sins of Israel. So now,
I'll accept that.
Thank you. So
I'll accept that.
Okay. So when Paul says Christ is the end of the law for righteousness, the remission of sins means that Christ died so that you don't have to be punished for the sins you committed. So that ended. That punishment for your sin stopped when Christ died.
Okay. Okay. Now, can I speak? Before can I speak then?
Yes.
All right. The reason why I don't want, brother, I'm just trying to get with you on this. That's all. I'm trying to show you where Paul flip-flops. And it wasn't only about.
But can you address what we just talked about, brother? Can you address? You said
I just agreed with you.
Okay, so
I just agree with you.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the floor. Just give me 15 seconds. What I want my audience to hear. What I want my audience to hear now. He said Paul was against the law based on Romans 10:4. After me reading Matthew 26 and 28, that Christ died for the remission of sins, he now agrees that Paul was not saying something contradictory to Christ. You got the floor.
Okay, so now let me ask you.
He learned. This brother learning. This brother learning a little bit.
No, because I'm still going to stand where I stand with that.
Wait. How you going? How I'm going to crush the contradiction?
Can I finish?
Go ahead, brother.
Can I finish?
Go ahead, brother. You got it.
Why does Paul attack people for getting circumcision and then says, you know what I'm saying, you getting circumcised abolishes you to Christ.
Okay,
Hold on. He also says that you can eat food sacrificed to idols because idols are really nothing. I understand his position with that.
Okay.
These idols aren't really anything, so it can't hurt you if you eat it or you don't eat it.
So now what I'm gonna do? Wait, before you go forward, right? I got 3 other callers on the line, right? And you're not bad today, so I don't have to hang up with you. But for time,
I want to get back with you.
Wait. I'm not about. No. Just let me finish. So pick which one of those that you want to talk about, but it's the only one we're going to talk about. So if you want to talk about circumcision, or do you want to talk about eating food sacrificed to idols, and that'll be the last subject, so I can get to the other callers. So which one do you want to talk about?
I'm gonna say this to you, bro. I'm gonna say this because the last time I spoke to you, I asked you to go and read James 2, verse 14, where he totally attacks Paul and his
But now you're going to James, brother.
I'm letting you go. Tazaryach, I'm gonna let you go, bro.
Okay.
Because I really want to have the conversation. We need to go back and forth, chapter for chapter, verse for verse. And we can't do it on your live. We can't do it on your live. You know what I'm saying? But I challenge you. Right? Because this man, I believe he's a stumbling block. Yeshua warned his disciples about him coming in Matthew 24 and 23. At the end of Matthew 24 and 23, where he's talking to the disciples, he goes, "Behold, I have told you to watch out for all these antichrists. But I'm gonna let you go. Say you get the last word, and then I'm gonna say peace to you, bro.
No problem. I appreciate it. The only stumbling block, brother, is you. And when you go back and watch this tape,
Right.
you're going to see that
Yep.
you pulled Romans 10 and 4 and got corrected on it and then agreed. So
I don't change on that.
If anybody
Don't
is a
change on
now, the fact that you say that you don't change on that, even though you agree,
Come on.
you are 2 Peter 3 and 14.